Good evening, folks. This is Deb Delapiana, and this is your short take. So the other night I did a little video that was kind of a tease about what was going to happen during the J6 committee's final meeting. What they did was they voted to adopt the document, the report. But then they also did indeed file criminal referrals to the DOJ relative to Donald Trump's activity that day, and also the activity of several other people. So let's talk about that portion of the program first. I think initially there were supposedly 3 criminal referrals. There are actually 4. So let's talk about them. I'm going to talk about them in very broad strokes, like what may be the issue that they're talking about with these indictments. So obstruction of an official proceeding. So that was leveled at Trump, Eastman, and others. Now, I don't know the specifics of the others. They didn't read all the names. But this would be something like the continual dogging of Mike Pence to do something that he had no authority to do, which was to decertify a legitimate election. Then there was conspiracy to defraud the U.S. government. And that was leveled at Trump, Eastman, and others. So you can see that John Eastman is up to his eyes here. And this is, say, dissemination of fake election claims or false election claims, let's put it that way. Where they're out there constantly posting and twittering and, out there on Gab and on Fox News talking about how the election was stolen, how Joe Biden and the Democrats stole the election. Then there is conspiracy to make a false statement. That was leveled at Trump and others. Eastman wasn't specifically called out in that one, but that doesn't mean he's not there. That would be the fake electors, trying to force the fake electors down everyone's throats. And then the big one, Donald Trump and others inciting, assisting, or giving aid and comfort to an insurrection. And that, of all of them is going to be the hardest to prove, or that's going to be the one where they can't make one mistake. Look at none of this has ever happened before in history. I went through the whole Watergate thing. Nobody indicted Richard Nixon. Richard Nixon resigned, and then Gerald Ford took over and pardoned him in case they indicted him. Okay? So no president, sitting or otherwise, has ever been referred for criminal indictment to the Department of Justice. So this is a first in American history. And as such, I promise you that Jack Smith will have to be perfect with his evidence. And we need to stop with the he's doing nothing routine, because that's not the case here. I have heard people say this is a slam dunk. You all thought that was the case with Kyle Rittenhouse too. He's out there on Twitter tweeting away every day after taking lives in a place where he shouldn't have been. And he's talking about, as he takes a picture of himself with the Capitol behind him, that being his place of work in a few years. So nothing's a slam dunk, because in order to get an indictment, Jack Smith's going to have to take this to a grand jury and get an indictment. And then once he gets an indictment, it's going to have to go into a court of law in front of a different jury, a jury of Donald Trump's peers, where anything can happen. And if Jack Smith doesn't have his evidence nailed to the fucking floor, anything can happen. Because if he's found guilty, Donald Trump will appeal. And we do not want an overturn on appeal, and we do not want an overturn on technicalities. This is all the shit that you need to think about as this is going on. So there are a couple of other things they recommended. They recommended some of the representatives who would not honor the subpoenas being referred to the House Ethics Committee for sanctions. And those representatives were Kevin McCarthy, Jim Jordan, Scott Perry, Andy Biggs, and Mo Brooks. I don't know what's going to happen with Mo Brooks. He is now a civilian for all intents and purposes. He lost his primary. So we'll have to see if there's another way he can get his reckoning. They also recommended potential prosecution for Mark Meadows, Trump's chief of staff, and the following Trump attorneys: John Eastman, Rudy Giuliani, Jeffrey Clark, and Kenneth Chesebro. So what we know right now is this does not bind the DOJ to act. The DOJ has already impaneled, Jack Smith has already impaneled a criminal grand jury in Washington, D.C., and is already hearing evidence in both the documents and the J6 insurrection case. Okay, he's got two cases going on simultaneously. Now, he has already subpoenaed all of the election officials from all 7 states, Michigan, Georgia. You know, the Georgia investigation that I talked about the last video, that's a whole separate deal. That's just for the state of Georgia. But Georgia is also part of this. So these people are testifying all over again on a federal charge. All right. They said they saw Brad Raffensperger going into the courthouse the other day. This is going on in Washington right now. So what this J6 committee work has done, and we will see the report sometime later this week. They already have released the 154-page executive summary. I posted that everywhere, Facebook, Twitter. It's all out there. This provides a roadmap for Jack Smith because he's already looking at this. If they weren't already looking at this, Merrick Garland would not have announced a special counsel. And the reason he announced the special counsel is because once Donald Trump announces his run for the presidency, they can't afford to have anything look partisan. It had to be taken out of Merrick Garland's direct control. He's still running the show. Jack Smith works for him, but Jack Smith's doing all the legwork. Jack Smith has to make sure that he has every I dotted and every T crossed. We have never, ever indicted a former president for anything, let alone an insurrection. And, you know, I know people say, well, nothing like this has ever happened in history before. And that's very true. But that doesn't mean that you could just rush stuff. You know, people have been saying, we need to hurry. The GOP is going to take over again in January. That has nothing to do with this. This is a criminal investigation. It's not political in nature, and it can't be political in nature. It will not work that way. Okay? He has impaneled a grand jury to hear evidence through March of 2023. Just as Fannie Willis said, in Georgia, her grand jury would end by the end of the year. It has. It's already writing the report. The grand jury will be over in March of 2023 for the federal charges that are being undertaken by Jack Smith. And then we will move from there. The statute of limitations on this event is through 2026, but it is not going to go that long. They are already further ahead than you think because they have actually been getting people's phones, raiding people's houses, getting texts from Mark Meadows for a while now. Now they've been stymied by these guys using the legal system to slow things down, but they are moving forward. And they are moving quickly by every standard. So that's where we are. I'm going to work in the morning tomorrow. I will be back in the afternoon, and I will talk to you all then. Have a great night. Okay, now, so let's talk about taking this whole criminal referral thing of Trump a little bit further. Let's talk about what we have been harping on for a very long time. You know, the insurrectionists who are serving in our government. As I explained to you, proving and getting a guilty verdict on an insurrection for a former president is going to be a very, very, very steep hill to climb. It is not done lightly in this country. Okay. This has never happened in the centuries that we've been here, the 200 and some odd years that we've been a government. This has never happened before. And in order to prove that you aided and gave comfort to an insurrection, you have to have solid evidence. And I do believe that the J6 committee has that, because I don't believe that they made that referral lightly. But then there's the matter of all of the people who voted to decertify Joe Biden's election. You are not going to be able to get criminal referrals for those people and removal from public office. So this goes back to what we've been harping on from the get-go. We, the people, need to get them out. And we do that by voting. Just the way the J6 committee has said, we resolve our differences at the voting booth. That's how we do this here. It may not be the way it's done in other countries, but it is the way it's done here. We resolve our differences at the voting booth. If you're really pissed off, then you know what? Then more than 52% of registered Democrats need to go and vote, because that's how you solve this problem. And Barack Obama is absolutely right. If 90% of the Democrats that are registered actually went out and voted, we'd never have to worry about the DOJ having to get involved in anything. We wouldn't even have to worry about the Republican Party ever being a majority again. They are wildly unpopular. They win when the Democrats get lazy. That's the way this works, folks. Now, I know in some states they're always going to win. Okay, I get the babble belt. You know what I'm saying? I get it. But the fact of the matter is, the Democrats in Michigan managed to turn that state around and give the Democrats complete control for the first time in 50 years. They're making inroads, even in Arizona with Nutty Carrie Lake. They made inroads. They put Katie Hobbs in as governor. In Florida, it's a shit show now. Because why? The Florida Democratic Party let it go to shit. And so did the Democratic Party, the big Democratic Party. They need to go down there and reclaim Florida. But what I'm saying is this. There is the matter of all of these people who voted to decertify the election. You know, Lauren Boebert, Marjorie Taylor Greene. You had an opportunity to get rid of these people. They're not going to be charged with anything unless they can build a case for sedition. And you know something? To build a case for sedition is one thing. To get a jury to buy it is another. Because you're also going to have a jury in there that has never been exposed to this before. You know, you have juries that have been exposed to, you know, white-collar crime before. You've had juries that have been exposed to murder before. You've had juries that have been exposed to bank robbery before. But sedition is a whole new ballgame for a jury. So not only are you going to have to figure out a way to educate your jury, but then you're going to have to prove to them that what you're showing them actually works and proves it beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, the way we can solve this problem is to just vote them out. Then there is no worry. I'm suggesting to you, I gave you the names of the people who were referred for criminal indictment. None of these people are the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, okay? The ones who made the statement that had they actually planned the insurrection, they would have won and they would have been armed. They actually were armed. And you'll see that when you read the report that comes out from the J6 committee later in the week. But you can't walk into a court of law and seat a jury and give them that as the only evidence that Marjorie Taylor Greene is a seditionist. You can't do the same thing with Lauren Boebert when she says that Joe Biden is not the legitimate president. Okay? That's not how you prove sedition. Those are statements. Okay? Even Donald Trump's speech before the insurrection is not enough on its own to get an indictment on sedition. They have more than that. And they need to have more than that. Guys, here's what I'm telling you. This has been a lot of legwork to get this far. If they get indictments for all these people, this should be considered a huge victory. We need to take the victory lap with them. The way to get rid of the rest of the people that are in office right now, the Matt Gaetzes, the Marjorie Taylor Greens, the Andy Biggs, all of these people, Andy Biggs is probably going to be indicted. Maybe. If they can make it stick, if they can make a case to a grand jury. But if not, he's got to be voted out. We cannot sit here and assume that for the next 5 years, the DOJ is going to systematically remove all these people from office. I think that's how some people think. And that's the only reason why I'm making this video longer than it needs to be. That's not the real world. Okay? That's not the real world. To make a case for all of these people would take years. Yes, we have prosecuted 800 people who broke into the Capitol, but those people recorded themselves and were caught on camera and posted their shit on Parler. That makes it kind of easy to get those people. These people, they're wily. They're sneaky. They're conspirators. And that's a different ballgame. And to prove that every one of those 124 seditionists actually acted in a planned out conspiratorial manner is too much of a hill for the DOJ to climb. They would never get it done. So what that does is leave it up to us. If the Democratic people in this country who are registered to vote do not understand that there still is a clear and present danger to our democracy just by having these people in office, then I feel sorry for you. Because that's what you need to understand. And that should be enough of an impetus to get you to go out and vote. If you don't care about democracy, you ought to try living without it. Because if you think that any kind of government that is helmed by the GOP and the right wing is going to solve your economic problems, your freedoms, your freedoms that you claim to be so attached to, if you think they're not going to take those freedoms from you, they're already trying to tell you what you can do with your own body. They're already denying women the right to get an abortion. They're already telling trans people they can't get health care. If you think that that's going to be a solution to your problems in the long term, then you are terribly misguided. The clear and present danger to this democracy, there is no other country that does this here, okay? We are the only country. All these people say, well, look at Sweden. Yeah, their population is 10 million people, and they're primarily Swedish, okay? People, it's not comparing apples and apples. It's comparing apples and oranges, okay? We are a country of 335 million diverse people, and we are about to get our lunch handed to us if the Democratic voters that are registered do not go out and vote. And by the way, if the Republicans who are not MAGA Republicans really care, they would cross the aisle and vote Democrat just to get this to a point where we can actually get together so we can disagree on some real issues again. But I digress, and I will talk to you all later.